When everything becomes cheap enough to win, nobody really wins. For decades, China's rise looked unstoppable. Factories running nonstop, cities glowing tonight, and prices falling so fast that the rest of the world simply stepped aside. This was China's signature move. Endless production, endless speed, endless efficiency. Year after year, goods got cheaper, and Western companies just couldn't compete. It looked like a miracle, a mix of discipline, scale, and planning so perfect that it felt like a superpower. But hidden inside that miracle was a cost. And today, that cost is pulling the entire system down. Welcome to the Financial Historian, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it seems. China's story is really the story of modern capitalism pushed to its absolute limit, a system that rewards growth at any price, even if that price destroys the very future it depends on. So what happens when the world's manufacturing giant becomes a victim of its own perfection, when efficiency turns into self-destruction? To understand that, we have to go back to the very beginning of China's economic rise. In 1978, Deng Xiaoping stood before the Communist Party and broke a sacred rule of socialism. He said that getting rich wasn't shameful, it was patriotic. And with that, he opened the gates. China began transforming overnight. Farmers turned into entrepreneurs. Villages turned into workshops. The countryside turned into factories. Foreign companies saw a gold rush. Cheap labor, millions of workers, and a government hungry for investment. First Japan came, then America, then Europe. China launched a few special economic zones, small places where the rules were simple. Fewer restrictions, fewer barriers, more freedom to trade. Those zones exploded with growth. Shenzhen, once a fishing village, turned into a megacity, and China thought, why stop here? Soon every province wanted its own success story. Local governments borrowed money, built highways, power plants, industrial parks, anything to attract more factories. By the early 2000s, China wasn't just growing, it was consuming the world's demand for raw materials. Steel, coal, copper, oil. China needed everything and fast. If something could be manufactured, sooner or later it will be made in China. But behind this unstoppable rise was a dangerous incentive. Success meant being cheaper than everyone else. So competition became a race downward. Cities cut land prices. Factories cut wages. Businesses cut margins. Everyone chased more output. No one chased balance. But it worked. Millions of workers arrived from the countryside every year. 12-hour shifts became normal. Overtime became survival. The factories never slept. Western shoppers got what felt like magic. The $5 t-shirt, the budget laptop, the affordable smartphone. And China got richer and richer. But somewhere along the way, the machine overheated. The miracle became an addiction. Local governments needed growth just to repay the loans they took to build more growth. So they kept building. By 2015, China had more steel capacity than the rest of the world combined. Factories produced goods faster than the world could absorb them. And prices began to fall, not because of innovation, but because of desperation. Companies were losing money, but instead of slowing down, they sped up. That's when a new word became popular. Involution, more effort, less reward. In the past, it described students or workers exhausting themselves for tiny gains. Now it described entire industries doing the same thing. Solar panels, electric vehicles, batteries, once symbols of China's future, became battlegrounds of a price war. Companies cut prices to survive. Their rivals cut even lower. Margins disappeared, but no one dared stop. If you reduced output, you lost face. So the cycle continued. Lower prices, lower profits, lower wages, and in the end, lower prosperity. China had entered full industrial involution, a loop where efficiency destroyed profit and production lost its purpose. And like every race to the bottom, nobody wins. That's why solar panels sell below cost. EVs pile up unsold, and tech giants fight over shrinking demand. Record exports, but falling profits. Factories are moving more goods than ever, but making less from every one of them. This isn't capitalism in overdrive. It's capitalism eating itself. China has seen this before in coal and steel during the early 2000s. Back then, the government had to close plants by force. Millions lost jobs. But this time the problem isn't one industry. It's the entire model. Officials know the truth. Declining profits, stagnant wages, and rising debt. But publicly, the message remains, keep producing. Because if production slows, the illusion breaks. China's economy of the 2020s looked powerful on the outside, but inside, margins were collapsing. Factories were shiny and new. Exports were high, but wealth wasn't growing. It was being recycled thinner every year. Economists call this overcapacity. In China, it's a strategy. Take solar panels. In 2023, China produced double the world's actual demand. Prices dropped 40%. Dozens of companies failed. Electric vehicles? Over 100 brands are fighting for a shrinking market. Price cuts everywhere. Subsidies everywhere. But subsidies only make the cycle worse. More supply, lower prices, thinner margins. Even as exports rise, industrial profits fall. China is growing on paper, but the quality of that growth is falling apart. But here's the twist. Some of this isn't accidental. It's intentional. China uses efficiency as a weapon. Sell goods below cost long enough, and foreign competitors collapse. It's ruthless but effective. Once the world depends on your factories, you control the future. China used this strategy in steel, rare earth metals, shipbuilding, and won. But now the stakes are higher. This time the industries of the future, batteries, solar cells, EVs. And the strategy is brilliant in theory, but fragile in reality, because you can't lose money forever. When every industry expects government rescue, innovation dies and subsidies become oxygen. That's the danger. China is winning price wars, but weakening itself in the process. Dominating the world by losing money isn't victory. It's delayed collapse. Local governments need factories running to pay their debts. Banks need factories borrowing to stay alive. The central government needs all of them working to maintain stability. If any part of the chain stops, the whole system unravels. So the machine keeps spinning. When growth slows, the state builds more factories. When prices fall, it cuts them further. The solution to imbalance is more imbalance. It's not irrational, it's survival. China's social contract is simple. Keep growing and the people will keep believing. That worked when growth boosted incomes. But now it only makes goods cheaper, not lives better. China's low prices once stabilized the world. Now they're exporting weakness. Western factories close. Emerging markets can't compete. Cheap becomes a global trap. History has seen this before, from Britain's coal to Japan's bubble economy to ancient Rome's grain surplus. Rome produced so much grain that prices collapsed, destroying the small farmers who kept the republic alive. China's leaders know this pattern. That's why they talk about rebalancing. But rebalancing takes time, and the system is addicted to speed. China's provinces keep building more factories, even in industries that already overflow. It's like trying to diet while the kitchen keeps cooking non-stop. The world gets cheap solar panels and EVs, great for progress, terrible for China's profits. China's problem isn't low productivity. It's too much productivity and not enough demand. The very force that made China rich, relentless competition, now prevents it from staying rich. Because when a system optimizes everything except balance, eventually the only thing left to destroy is itself. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.